Welcome back. Let's talk about the Nigerian president. Is he caged? Is he not caged? Is he cut off from reality or not? Well, when Mohammed Ali Ndume, who is the Chief Whip of the Nigerian Senate, said that Muhammadu Buhari was a more accessible president in his time than President Bola Tinubu is, one wonders if Ndume actually foresaw the backlash that his statement will receive. Well, he was speaking on television last week, and Ndume claimed it was difficult to have an appointment with President Bola Tinubu because, now this is the whip of the Nigerian Senate, he says the president has been shielded from reality by some of his appointees. Now, in its response, the All Progressives Congress has said that the inability of Senator Ali Ndume, this is a ranking senator, his inability to access President Bola Tinubu cannot warrant or justify his declaration that the president has been caged, and that Mr. Tinubu meets and interacts regularly with citizens, officials, and guests from all walks of life as his schedule permits. Now, has Mr. President been truly caged? His aides denying certain important persons like Ali Ndume access to the president, and is he cut off from the reality of the situation in Nigeria today? We're joined by Nick Agule, who is a public affairs analyst, who joins us virtually. Nick, it's good to have you on the program. Been some time. Good evening. In your opinion, is Mr. President caged as he is in Aso Rock Villa, as alleged by Senator Ali Ndume?
Good morning, Kofi. I'm actually in Vancouver, in Canada, so our time is 11:36 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And good evening to Nigerians and our viewers globally. To your question as to whether the president is caged or not, I have no idea. I have never worked in Aso Villa. I'm not close to the current government. I don't go to the villa where I'll be able to make a categorical statement that the president has been caged. Whether that cage is a physical cage or is some sort of virtual cage around him with people not allowing others access to him and all of that. But I know that there has been stories coming out of the villa. If you recall, the former spokesman of President Obasanjo, Dr. Ruben Abati, did come forward with this theory that there are some forces within the villa. And those forces have a way of hijacking people who have gone into the villa, maybe remote controlling them or something like that. I don't know if you recall that scenario that was being painted by someone who was in the villa for 8 years. And we also know that in President Buhari's regime, in the early days of the regime, the first lady of the country came forward, that's Mrs. Aisha Buhari. She came forward publicly to say that her husband was surrounded by hyenas and jackals. These are her words. I'm not insulting anybody. She said, she must have taken a look at the people who were coming around the president, her husband, power broking and all of that. And her summation of the character of those people was that they were hyenas and jackals. That is, they were animals, behaving like animals, So these are the kind of snippets that we get coming out of the presidential villa in terms of what happens there. I have a problem with Senator Ndume's take. Why do I have a problem with him? We need to have leaders who are nationalistic and who are selfless. It appears to me that his pains are that he has been denied access to the president. I wish he didn't put that in his statement. Then I would have known that Senator Ndume is fighting for Nigerians. He's making public statements as regards the state of governance as we have it today. But to say that he, as a Senate Chief Whip, cannot assess the president. Then what happens to newer senators and all of that? To me, smacks of hypocrisy, smacks of selfishness, meaning he wouldn't be making this statement if he was being allowed access to the president and he was getting what he wanted. And that to me is the problem of leadership in Nigeria. A leadership that will deliver for the people is a leadership that is working for the interest of the people. The interest of the people first, not their own personal interest.
Okay, Nick, I'll come back to you because you've made a lot of points which I would like to touch on. But I'd like to say we have joining us at this point, Akin Bashiru, who is Chieftain of the All Progressives Congress. He's in Lagos. Mr. Bashiru, it's good to see you. Do you agree that, access to the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria could be denied to imported persons of the the caliber of the Senate Chief Whip, ranking Senator Ali Ndume? Good evening to you, Akin Bashiru.
It's only Ndume that can say in what circumstances has he been denied access. But the fact remains for me, Aso Rock is not for visiting all alone. But you equally agree that a lot of people go to Aso Rock to see the president. So definitely, the circumstances, through which you see the president and the purpose for which your visit is meant will determine when and how you are seen. But for me, when you even look at the fact that the legislator is another arm of government, it appears funny to hear that the legislator cannot access Mr. President. There's a difference between Ndume wanting to see Mr. President on a personal level and Ndume, who is the Chief Whip, wanting to see Mr. President through, the template and through the route of the National Assembly leadership. I'm sure we are all here and we see that the presidency, the legislature, they meet quite regularly, they exchange notes on issues. But if Ndume is talking about a personal visit to Mr. President, I do not think any Nigerians should sympathize really with him. The fact must also be told that the governance that took place in the past regime is not the same with this one. There is a serious government in place. And Mr. President is firing on all cylinders. Mr. President continually pleads with Nigerians that he knows they're suffering.
We'll come to that, Mr. Bashiru, later. We'll come to that, Akin Bashiru, later, please. Let me bring in Nick Agule back. Nick, remember, thank you, Mr. Akin Bashiru, we'll come to that point. But Nick, remember a former famous senator who asked in the time of Muhammadu Buhari, who is the presidency? Who is the presidency? What are your thoughts about this concept of cabals in the Nigerian presidency, cabals in the Nigerian presidency? Because it goes all the way back to the time of Olusegun Obasanjo, who at the time he was president, spoke about the existence of a cabal within his administration, and you've had that even up to the time of Goodluck Jonathan and the time of Muhammadu Buhari. Hence that question, who is the presidency? What is it about the Nigerian presidency that seems to make it difficult for them to be accessible at one point in time or the other?
Well, I wouldn't say the president is inaccessible. Just like my co-panelist, Alhaji Bashiru, has said, as we speak today, if the president is in Aso Villa in Abuja, people are going to see him.
Okay, can I rephrase my question? What is responsible for the perennial administration to administration allegation or suspicion that there are certain people around the presidency forming a sort of a cabal?
Okay, fine. So if we're talking about a cabal, I will say that, look, a cabal is a human phenomenon. All leaders around the world, I'm speaking to you now, speaking to you from Vancouver here in Canada. If you go to Justin Trudeau's office, the Prime Minister of Canada, I'm sure he has close people he works with. Look, for those who are Christians, you will know that even Jesus Christ had a cabal. You will remember that in many instances in the Bible, they will say Jesus took along Peter, James and John. You know, those were his cabal. They are the ones that were always with him. So that a leader has a cabal is not the issue. The issue should be, is the leader delivering good governance? And for Nigeria, the constitution mandates leaders to deliver welfare and security. If a leader is delivering those things, then who should be bothered about a cabal or not a cabal? And also, a leader who knows his onions should not be allowed to be caged. Why would you allow yourself to be caged? You are the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Nigeria. You can take on anybody, regardless of who they are, whether they are billionaires or they are members of your party or they are all sorts of power brokers here and there. If you really want to take them on, you can take them on with the powers that you have. You know, and in fact, most of these people that we think are cabal or they are power brokers and all of that, if they see the eyes of the president change against them, they advise themselves that, look, I can't fight the president. You know, right now people see me as being close to the president. If the president begins to fight me, everybody will just know that I'm outside the corridors of power. And they will behave. You know, so I don't think there is an excuse for a president not to perform because he's been caged, or there's a cabal around him and all of that. Just deliver the job for which you sought for.
Interesting. We'll come back to look at the whether he's cut off from reality or not. I think Mr. Bashiru started on that point. We'll take a quick break, and when we return, we continue with the conversation. Welcome back. We still have with us APC Chieftain Akin Bashiru, and of course, Public Affairs Analyst Agule. Is Mr. President caged? Is he cut off from reality? Is access to the President of Nigeria denied by his aides? Questions we're asking tonight. I want to go to you, Mr. Akin Bashiru. What are your thoughts on this idea by Ali Ndume that Mr. President is being shielded from knowing the real situation in the country? In other words, he's cut off from reality by his aides.
Let me first clarify this. Ali Ndume cannot qualify to be an aide to Mr. President. He cannot, because there is separation of power in the first place. So for anybody in National Assembly to count himself to be an aide to Mr. President, I think is misnomer. And I think that would be very selfish in the first instance. And like I said earlier on, you see Asiwaju as a president who is leading from the front. He engages every person possible, institutions possible, and is not afraid of engaging and talking to whoever cares to listen. You will see a Mr. President who does not speak Yoruba, who does not speak Hausa, who does not speak Igbo. So even if he has his own cabal, it's a national cabal. A cabal that is progressive as against a cabal that is retrogressive. And because Mr. President has a clear idea of, where he thinks the country should be driven, he has brought people together. Imagine recently we inaugurated the Economic Council, or what do you call it? A cabal or somebody who is caged wouldn't have gone to that extent to bring people, captains of industries, public servants, who have been successful in their own various areas of specialization, bringing them together. Definitely such a leader cannot be caged, or couldn't have been caged. If he had been caged, he would not reach out to the caliber of people he has been reaching out to.
But I want to come in here, Akin Bashiru. These points you made, the same points also that Felix Morka, National Publicity Secretary of the All Progressives Congress, made, that the president has met with the Presidential Economic Council. These are Nigerians. He's met with the leadership of Labour not once or twice. All these meetings happened in Asu Villa, and not outside Asu Villa. And that brings me to my next question, which I'd like Agule to answer. Mr. President has not gone out to meet Nigerians, real Nigerians, not talking about those who are holding one position or the other. As President, Agule, and do you think that 1 year into his administration, at least, he should have had a tour of a significant number of states in the country, not to go and commission a project shielded by Secret Service agent, DSS, and the military and all that, but interacting with Nigerians, the same interactions that the president had when he was campaigning, going for town hall meetings, meeting with beggars, meeting with market women, maybe between professional bodies. He has not done any of that since he became president. So is that also maybe representative or a reason why it is possible he could be cut off from knowing the real situation in the country?
The president has a prerogative of going out, to the streets, the markets, or even embarking on tours around the country to meet with the people and all of that. But that is not the only way the president can know the mood of the nation. The president watches news. I expect him to watch the news. I expect the president, the presidential media advisor, to also bring to the president's attention.
Agule, is the president going to be interacting with Nigerians through the news?
No,
when he was campaigning, yes, Agule, when he was campaigning, he didn't campaign on the news. He went to meet people. He even put his hand in his pocket and gave money. And he used to do that when he was not president at Budilon, his house, just here in Lagos.
Okay, so first and foremost, let me say I agreed with you. My opening remarks were that I agreed with you that what you have suggested is right, that the president can go out and meet Nigerians on the streets, or even when I was growing up as a kid, we used to have president visit states on a presidential visit where they stay for a few days, and we school children will go and line up and we'll be waving flags at them, and then they address press conference. I agree with you that is one way the president can check the mood of the nation. But that said, it's not the only way. If he decides not to do that, but he checks the mood of the nation from news sources, and what his advisors and his ministers are putting before him, I don't think the president is insulated from knowing what is happening in Nigeria. That is why you can see that some of his interventions, like what we talked about, that cybersecurity levy and all of that, he intervened to say this. Then he's intervening in food crisis.
Agule, I want to go to Akin Bashiru. Thank you very much. In other times, you see the presidents go out, meet with people. They can even go to a restaurant and order a cup of coffee and sit down and talk to the people. They can go to disaster zones. Maybe there's a disaster, they will show up there, encourage the disaster relief workers and all that, and give press statements. The president has not, I don't remember, but I don't think he's even granted a media interview or that we used to see when he was campaigning. Will all this not help if he does this to, get him closer to the people, make him more accessible to Nigerians?
We get the difference very clear. Mr. President campaigning for election is clearly different from Mr. President, from the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. As the President of the Republic of Nigeria, he is no longer in charge of his protocol, he's no longer in charge of his security, he's no longer in charge of so many things. There are so many protocol demands that guide what he does. That's a fact. The other one is, how does Mr. President interact with Nigerians? The one you are talking about, that one is a stopgap, maybe, but the important thing is, has Mr. President been talking about issues? Has Mr. President been addressing issues as they occur?
When will the president give a media chat?
Mr. President, just one
Has
minute,
he given a media chat yet? Has he given a media chat yet?
If he has not given a media chat yet, but that doesn't mean he has not been talking to Nigerians.
All right, we have
media
to go.
Chat,
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, just 1 minute.
We're out of time. We're out of time. Akin Bashiru, we need to go because of time. Akin Bashiru, APC Chieftain, and of course, Agule, Public Affairs Analyst.
In talking to people.
Gentlemen, thank you so very kind for your time. I sincerely apologize. We have to leave it at that. But I think it's time the president gives a media chat. And I'll be willing, we right here at News Central TV, to go to Asserting and sit down with Mr. President so he can speak to the nation. We can ask him some pertinent questions. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen. And from all of us here tonight on Politics HQ, that's the size of our package. And we'll return tomorrow with more of the program. My name is Kofi Bartel, signing out. Good night.